Uh, yes, my friends, here we are in Hunger City. I hope you are happy and ready as we eat alive this last film of I Need a Hero Month. I tell you, it seems like we've kind of gone on a downward slope since the beginning when we talked to Death Wish 5, which some would say, is that possible? Well, who knows? We'll find out tonight with the consensus of my crew. And yes, you did see the title right. Yes, we are voluntarily talking about Howard the Duck. Woo!
Sorry.
And we have a great crew assembled tonight joining me to talk about Howard the Duck from 1986. And yes, tonight joining me in the crew to talk about this very interesting film, and one that I'm going to trigger someone tonight. I'm going to tonight, and I think it'll be Ian, but we'll see what happens. First off, yes, Ian Simmons is with us here, my right-hand man. He's been here for a number for the long haul, making this long journey, and he still keeps coming back for some reason. How you doing tonight, Ian?
For some reason, Mark, we're talking about Howard the Duck.
I know, right?
My only reservation about talking about this movie is we couldn't wait another month for the actual 35th anniversary.
I know.
First, 1986.
I know. I mean, but we're a month close enough to the actual 35th anniversary. We'll let it slide. I don't think people will hold us to that if they even care. But
like water off a duck's back. That's
like
how we'll let it slide. I'm doing great, by the way, but I won't hold up the introduction anymore.
We're going to work as many puns as they did in the first 5 minutes of this movie. And with me as well, getting his duck on with us tonight is none other than the one and only Monty G, the horror miser himself. Hello, Monty. How are you? Welcome back.
What's going on, everybody? It's good to talk about a duck.
And that's what we definitely are doing tonight, is talking about a duck, Howard the Duck. Now, Ian, if you would be so kind, could you give our listeners, those few people out there who may not be familiar with this film, what the synopsis of Howard the Duck is?
Well, there's an alien race of duck creatures that live on a planet somewhere out there. Beneath
that's
the
a
pale
different
blue
movie.
sky.
Yeah, that was.
But he gets sucked. This guy Howard, he's like a regular workaday duck, and he's getting home from a hard day at work. He's sitting in his lounge chair having a cigar, and he gets sucked into space and into this like cross space wormhole portal thing to Cleveland, Ohio, 1986, which has a vibrant punk scene. Apparently, he meets up with Leah Thompson's Beverly, I think her name. Yeah, Beverly.
Yeah, Beverly. Yeah.
Beverly Switzler, who is, aspiring punk rock goddess, and she doesn't quite know what to do with this duck who's, wisecracking. So she takes him to a scientist friend played by Tim Robbins. Tim Robbins knows another scientist who is possessed by a monster who just wants to torture people. I was going to say it's the alien, but I mean, it's kind of just Jeffrey Jones playing himself, but this is a different kind of touching kids picture.
Yes.
So there's just this monster that's going to come down from outer space and bring all of his friends if Howard can't realign the giant space beam to cut off their new transport nexus of Sominus. That's basically it. And Howard trying to get some jobs and failing miserably and finding some sort of love, even if it's kind of platonic, maybe at the end. That's probably for the sequel, which he never got. Although Howard did make a cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 2.
Oh, that he did, yeah.
Was it 1 or 2 that he showed up at the end of?
That was at the end of 1.
End of 1.
Okay.
Yeah, that was when the collector's area blew up in 1. So
that's right. So yeah, that's basically Howard the Duck. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that kind of happens in this movie, but it's a really simple tale. It's not like the convoluted comic book movies that we would get, 30 years or 25 years later, which is kind of nice. It's a ridiculous, dare I say, a daffy movie, but I do like its simplicity.
Ah, yes. You know, it's great watching the first MCU film. You know, I was very happy about this because it didn't really come to fruition until I'm watching it. And after we get the teaser, if you will, the first 5 minutes where he's in his duck world and he gets pulled through, you have Mr. Voiceover talking about how there's many universes and many worlds out there, like a multiverse. Howard the Duck was fighting Thanos. Howard the Duck was at the end of Guardian of the Galaxy. Ergo, multiverse. Ergo, this is the first MCU film. Bring it. Bring it.
Hold on. Dolph Lundgren's Punisher came out. No, that was 89.
That was 89.
You're right.
That was 89. That was 89.
Okay. For some reason I think Howard the Duck is later, but this is really the first Marvel film. Now here's a question. Were the Conan movies, was that based strictly on Arthur Conan Doyle, or did that have anything to do with the Marvel comics?
No.
That was strictly just based on the Conan character. It has nothing to do with Marvel's Conan.
Could it though? Is there a way that we could thread those together so that, like, the Guardians travel back to Earth's past and find Arnold Schwarzenegger?
I'm just going by what's on screen, folks. And yes, I will say, with the multiverse out there, especially if you've got multiple Spider-Mans showing up in the next Spider-Man film, this is the first MCU film version of Howard the Duck. Bring it. Okay, there. Now I've triggered about half the internet. Thank you very much. And I had the one viewer who left. So see, look, we have one viewer and they left.
What's controversial about that point, though?
Because this film is so bad, and those who stand up for the MCU always sit there and think all the films are wonderful. So, you know. Well,
here's the thing. Howard the Duck is kind of a bad movie, but that shouldn't be a slam on the rest of Marvel, because it's like, look how far they've come in the ensuing decades.
You could spin it that way, though. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I'm just saying it's the internet. I'm sure I've just triggered someone out there. And Mr. Carey would say I'm triggered by Marvel fans, but I'm like, no, I'm triggered by hypocrisy. But that's a whole nother story. Lamont, you remember when you first saw Howard the Duck? Did you see this in the theater?
Yeah, I went to the theater to see Howard the Duck because I was curious, because a lot of people probably don't know that Howard the Duck was actually a Marvel comic character. When I first saw that, I actually did not believe that they actually had an adventures of an animatronic, an anthropomorphic duck. Mm-hmm. I thought they were either ripping Daffy Duck or Donald Duck. But no. And then once I realized where he came from and, what type of adventures he's had, so I said, well, I get it. That's nice to see a duck, go through all these weird behind adventures and some very colorful villains like Dr. Bong.
Dr. Bong?
He had a villain called Dr. Bong. He actually had some type of bong on his head, and he would bring it and calamity happened. So he had this villain called Dr. Bong. Wow. They even had Howard the Duck be Iron Duck. He had an actual suit of iron similar to Iron Man's armor.
Yeah, I remember seeing the cover of that on one of the comics in the comic book shop. I remember that because I was like, no way.
Yeah. I don't know how George Lucas got the right to do this, but obviously he thought he was going to get himself another Star Wars. But unfortunately, I kind of liked the movie because it was kind of interesting. It's a very simple concept, nothing difficult to understand about Howard the Duck, the movie. It's just like, and they really tried their best to keep his book a secret. And I give them credit for that. But even before, there was no Facebook, there was no social media outlets right there. They really tried to keep his book. There was, unfortunately, one scene in Entertainment Tonight that got leaked out, and that's when we finally saw his book, and that pissed everyone off. Because unfortunately, he looks nothing like his comic book character.
Right. Well, he's a little more bulky, a little more stocky, because it's 1986, folks, and they're trying to bring a duck to life, and so they need room for the animatronics. So, because in the book he was thinner, I think. So,
Yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy Howard the Duck look a lot closer to what he looked like in the comics, and
Right.
it's strange because I guess it's because I grew up with this iteration of Howard the Duck that when I saw him late, it wasn't until later when I was older that I discovered the comics. I was like, this doesn't look right. I like the look of because there was talk that they were going to do a new Howard the Duck movie or do
Right.
something
Yeah.
with him in the new MCU. I was like, it'd be nice if they went back to this design, not necessarily this animatronic puppet, although I think for 1986 it was pretty good. It's not until you look at the hands that you're like, oh, these are just kind of puffy gloves. But I mean, the texture of the feathers and the eyes and everything were really convincing. I like this Howard. I collected a couple of the comics mostly because they were, I found some rare issues and things, but I never really read them. So I don't know. Was it an adventure book? Was it a satire book, or what was it?
Everyone thought it was a satire book, but no, it wasn't satire. It wasn't making fun of anyone. It was just this waterfowl from another world came to Earth, and he had adventures, and he got with this Earth woman named Beverly. They called her B, and he just had weird ass adventures. There's no real satire on it.
I wondered, if this has been collected anywhere? I don't know that Marvel would make it a priority, but it'd be cool to actually read some of these.
I don't know if they've. I don't think they've done digital versions of them. You'd have to try to find physical.
As a matter of fact, I think one of the first Howard the Duck books, because I think it was called Strange Tales. Because they had him and Man Thing and some other creatures in the book. And one of the first things I read was he actually faced off with a cow who got turned into a vampire by Dracula. So we had this cow vampire. It was really funny too because the cow actually had on a cape. I couldn't help but laugh because it's like, oh man, he really wished there a cow being a vampire.
I gotta seek that out. That sounds amazing.
That does sound amazing. I mean, well, they go there with this. Folks, 86 PG had a completely different rating than PG of today, because in the first 5 minutes we're introduced to Howard. He's this duck smoking. He's watching commercials. They're establishing, oh look, he lives in a duck world where everything's the same except they're ducks instead of humans, and you're okay. And then when he gets sucked by the beam through the building, he passes through the bathroom of one of his duck neighbors who happens to be taking a bath and is topless. Yes, you get duck breasts in this PG film for more than like a second. It's not like it's just a second. It's actually on screen for a bit yet. And I'm like, wow.
It's weird that they go there because especially later when they look at the evolution of duck kind chart, it's clear that they start out as ducks and they become more humanoid, but there's no reason that a duck should have nipples. Like, what is the evolutionary thought behind that?
They don't talk about that part of it.
I will stop nitpicking that issue though.
Wow.
Sorry.
Wow, yet another pun, just like all the puns they had visually in this film, from pun movie posters to, it's like that's Howard's world as he lives in the world of if it's a duck thing, it's like Real World only with a duck pun.
Like Rolling Egg magazine.
Rolling Egg magazine, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got Howard, who's kind of a Leisure Suit Larry light with feathers, but he's got some heart, and he is a man, if you will. And then we have Leah Thompson. And Lamont, what do you think of Leah Thompson in this film?
Well, she's okay. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if she fought that after with. I think this is after Back to the Future, right? The Back to the Future trilogy. Yeah.
86. It was 86. So yeah, it would have been just after she was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was after 1, but before 2 and 3.
Right.
Yeah, so you do Back to the Future, and next thing you know, you're in this movie. Now, I'm pretty sure she and everyone else thought that this is going to be a great movie. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if she has any regrets after this one. I mean, it's not that she does a bad job. She does what she can with the character. I don't know if she read the comic book or not, because I know some actors do and some actors don't. But
Right.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people. I don't know if she gets any jokes about it, or what did she think about being associated with this movie.
Well, she actually had done Space Camp just before this too. So to go to Space Camp to this is an interesting transition. But Ian, what'd you think of Leah Thompson in this?
Yeah, I think Leah Thompson's generally great. It's weird because I mostly think of her in those. She was like kind of Brat Pack adjacent. She was of that era, but not of that group necessarily, even though she was in Red Dawn in a small part. She did some kind of wonderful after this. So it goes to show that this didn't kill her career, thankfully. But it's weird to see her in those kinds of movies, and then to see her in something like Howard the Duck, where she is very sexualized. And I'm not saying that that's a criticism, because she's very attractive, and I would, I didn't mind watching her.
Way to say it like a man, Ian.
I'm just saying I did not mind watching her crawl around on a bed in a nightie where the camera was Michael Bay style up her butt. But it is kind of weird because that's not typically the kind of character that she plays. And she's not even really a sex pot or anything. She was just, in these outfits.
Yeah, it was very blatant that they were putting her in those outfits because of Howard being Howard. They were playing to that. Unfortunately, if you read the comments on IMDb, I suggest you don't read the comments. Wow, the misogyny is strong with those comments about her creamy thighs and such. That was, it was on a really creepy level. I mean, it's like, are you talking about the same movie? But I like her in this. You're right, though. It is weird to see her in a role like this, and it's the way her role was written. Her character was written, kind of this dreamy young woman, with we're used to her seeing her maybe a little bit smarter, or at least a little bit more grounded characters, and not quite so, it was just the way she was written. I mean, she played the character well, and it was a good, you could see why, because of the way Howard, the title character, is, why they wrote her like that. But it is weird to see her in a role like this.
You know what it's like, and I think this is what bugged me, and it goes back to a movie we talked about a couple weeks ago. Kate Mulgrew and Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins. It's as if she were in that same role, but instead of an army uniform, she was wearing like camouflage nightgown and like kind of like falling all over Remo Williams. And, you could go to the Statue of Liberty, or you could go to my bed. It's an actress and frankly a character that doesn't need to be depicted in that way, but just kind of is for some reason. I chalk it up to the time. I mean, there's so much weird 80s stuff about this movie, complete with the fact that when Howard gets to Cleveland, it's just like 5 or 10 minutes of him running into these weird street punks and street gangs, and everything is so over the top. It's like something out of Superman 4. I'm trying to tie all of the movies we've talked to about this month into this show.
Well, no. You know what I had a thought of? Death Wish thugs. They were dressed. They were dressed and portrayed like they were thugs from Death Wish, like 3 especially, but even in 5, but definitely 3. They were definitely from 3.
Well, speaking of Death Wish, to tie it all the way back to Death Wish 5 in particular, that was the one right where they had the Hispanic cop who ended up being betrayed. Yeah, he was like the traitor, the snitch. That's Miguel Sandoval. He's in Howard the Duck. He's one of the guys at the bar, who's with the shady record or the band promoter. And it's weird seeing him. Like this was years before Death Wish 5, but it's just strange to see him popping up. I'm used to seeing him in, in older roles. I really like him as an actor, but to see him kind of like young and almost skinny, I'm like, what is going on here?
Well, let's also not forget that it's also got a very young Paul Guilfoyle Goff. I forgot how to pronounce his name, but he's from. You'd see him later in CIS, I believe it is. He's playing the detective. He's in here, quite young, playing the lieutenant, the cop. So
that's where I knew him from. Okay,
yeah. He was from CSI. So, or CIS? No, CSI. Yeah, CSI. CIS. That's a degree. Never mind. This movie's rotted my brain. CSI, thank you. But yeah, so we've got Leah Thompson, and she's head of this band, the Cherry Bombs. If you don't get the reference to that, well, how dare you not understand where Cherry Bomb came from? But what I found fascinating looking this up, though, is she did all her own singing. That was her,
nice.
and she still has the guitar, the Les Paul guitar from the movie. She still has it.
Well, apparently. that should say, well, either that's her love of Les Paul or it's a bit of nostalgia about Howard the Duck. That's kind of sweet.
It might be a little of both, but apparently up until like when it was released, they weren't sure if they were going to use her vocals or not for sure, but they end up did, which is good because she actually, she proves that she's very talented because she can sing and play the guitar as well. She's not just going through the motions.
Well, it's weird because that outfit that Howard wears in the big concert at the end reminded me of what Marty McFly was wearing at the concert in Back to the Future.
It did have a little bit of resemblance to that, absolutely.
And also in the band was Holly Robinson, or now Holly Robinson Pete, who this was, I think, the year before she was the star of 21 Jump Street, which is always nice to see.
Yeah, it was. I kind of liked the band a bit, the characters. I mean, they're portrayed fine. They're very, they're not portrayed as completely unaware that their manager's a sleaze and they regret being in his role. Lamont, what'd you think of the band in this and the characters? We don't get a lot of them, but you get the impression they are just ones that want to make it big. But I never got the impression like they were your stereotypical like airheads from the 80s.
Mm-hmm. They were there just to be there. That was their purpose. That's what they were supposed to do. So, I wasn't, that's what they were there for, just to be part of the band, and that was it. They served no other purpose than just to be, hey, look, this is her band.
But I mean, at least they had a little more personality than you might expect for 86. So,
well, yeah, that's the thing is, I wish this movie had focused more on the stuff that works and just left out all the stuff that doesn't. I mean, you can say that about every movie, but I really liked the band. You're right. There's not a whole lot to them as far as screen time, but I mean, like one of them ends up dating the Tim Robbins character. Like they're going out, they have an on again, off again thing. I'm like, what is that about? I would like to watch a movie about these characters. Cause you're right, Mark. They're not airheads. They're not, like stereotypical punks where they like hate everybody. They just, they seem like they're following a dream. And you could almost, I feel like the sequel of this movie would have been Howard the Duck actually managing their band, and then like another alien shows up or something. But I could watch an entire movie with these characters, and a lot of it I think has to do with the actors because they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. The actors are having fun with it. I mean, you're in a film called Howard the Duck, so you're not obviously going to take. You're not doing Shakespeare the Duck. Now I want to see that. Now I want to see Howard as Hamlet. You only just call it Howard. Just
No, it'd be Omelet.
Omelet. There we go. Yeah. Omelet. So Tim Robbins, 2 years later, he'd go on to do the film that a lot of people know him for. And then 2 years after that, Jacob's Ladder. So wow, he'd go from Bull Durham to Jacob's. That's this character of his was annoying. Was just he's supposed to be comic relief, but I just found him so annoying in this.
The problem I have with Tim Robbins circa this era is no fault of his own or this other actor, but do you remember in Batman Returns there was the nerdy campaign manager guy with the glasses that the penguin bites his nose.
Yeah.
For years, I thought that was Tim Robbins. They look exactly the freaking same. But this, especially because Tim Robbins went on to have, I'll call them better roles, some of which you've mentioned, but to play different kinds of characters. And I guess it's a reminder that we all start somewhere. But yeah he is just so, like, I feel like anybody could have played this part. He's just kind of annoying, and you see a little bit of what Tim Robbins would become in there, but it's like, I just don't. I honestly zoned out for like the climactic 15 minutes of this movie where they're on the flying, gyrocopter or whatever. Then they're busting into the lab. I'm like, this
the
is
ultralight.
Yeah. I'm like, this is just all business, and they're not doing anything with it except like bouncing around traffic. And then they get into the lab and there's like stuff flying everywhere. There's just like this black hole. I'm like, I get it. This movie does not need to be this long. Or if it's that long, then do something a bit more interesting with it, like they did in the parts leading up to it.
Yeah. Did you feel this went a little long, Lamont?
At times, the movie does tend to drag at times. We get some nice interaction when Howard's on the scene, and we find out, how he got to this particular Earth, and he has actually had the chance to get back to Dark World, but he loves Earth so much now he's going to stay. But I can say they had some good ideas. He was just executed wrong.
There's a lot of potential here when you're watching it, to where if they would have stuck to just kind of one of the lanes, it would have been fine. Because you're right. It's this film. I think this film takes one of the most dramatic tone shifts I've ever seen a film take. Because before, up to one point, it's quirky, duck running around, duck puns and jokes. I love the scene where he's trying to get a job and he's talking to the social worker, and she just does not care that he's a duck or guy in a duck suit or whatever. She does not care. She's going to get him a job. I love that whole scene. And then we get to the lab and the accident, and suddenly this turns into like some dark demon coming down to Earth apocalyptic film. And I'm like, whoa, well, we just took a right turn, Clyde, and we're in a completely different territory now.
I think that kind of works in its favor because, I mean, well, first of all, the job placement lady, ever since I was a little kid, I've always loved that line where she was like, "You come in here looking all controversial." I'm like, what? I don't know what that means, but I love it. But no, you're right. I mean, I think it's cool. I like that, for as problematic as Jeffrey Jones would, end up being, and probably even was while this was going on. I watched this with my wife last night, and I was like, what happened with that guy? And I explained it to her, and she's like, yeah, he does look kind of like someone that would do that. But he was a fine actor in these, kind of classic and, infamous comedies. But in this part, he plays a scientist who's a good guy scientist who gets taken over. Right. He's not usually in these movies involving like aliens or superheroes, or whatever, you run into a scientist and they become power hungry, or they're secretly evil or something. No, I felt bad when the alien kind of took over his body. And then I felt sort of nice when he was sort of freed towards the end. It's just a kind of different kind of role. And when he's playing this dark Lord of the Sith or whatever, I love the makeup effects, even the not digital, but the kind of rotoscope, effects.
The animated,
the animations. I watched this on Blu-ray. Yes, I have the Blu-ray. It looks spectacular.
Yeah,
and even some of the point of view stuff when he's like firing a beam out at Howard or Beverly or whoever, we see it come out. I watched Star Wars yesterday, the original, A New Hope, first time with my 4-year-old son watching a movie, and all the way through, and he loved it. But I was reminded those POV shots from Jeffrey Jones's character reminded me of early in episode 4 when the stormtrooper shoots Princess Leia. We see the stun beam coming out at the camera in these like circular waves.
Yeah.
That's replicated here. And George Lucas produced the movie. I don't know if he had say in that or what, but it is kind of thematically similar. So there's some real art going on in this thing.
Well, this film came out just after he assembled Skywalker Ranch.
Yeah.
So this was them, and you can see it. If I remember correctly, this is the guys who would go on or be at Skywalker Ranch. And so this is kind of the special effects crew. So that's probably why, even for 86, it looks like it does. I mean, we get the stop motion animation monster at the end, which my son says was his only good part of the entire film to him, at all. Any redeeming quality, it was just a stop motion animation monster. I tried to get other parts from it. He's like, no, the rest of this movie he's like, no, it should bomb again at the box office, and we should track down the people who made it and have them pay us for watching it tonight. So that was his review of.
I feel like I'm a bad influence on your son, Mark, even though we've never actually met. But
he does sound similar to you at times. He does, yes.
You're doing it right, Mark.
I'm doing it right. Lamont, what'd you think of these special effects in here that they have? Because it is a sci-fi film, so you're going to have special effects.
Well, I haven't seen the Blu-ray. I know that this was this is still late 80s, early 90s, and I don't know how they hold up today. Obviously, the Blu-ray looks pretty good.
Yeah,
and they look fine. In that era, I got nothing to complain about. Although it kind of looked like what the Langolier should have looked like in the TV movie. It's not giant meatballs.
Yeah, they did kind of have that look. Absolutely, that's how they should have looked more than the Langolier TV movie. Way to go for a deep cut there, Lamont. I think most people forgot that thing existed. I know I try to, but I actually watched that series anyway. I like the designs of the creatures. I like the ideas. The whole thing with, even though it's Jeffrey Jones, the whole transformation was interesting because every time you saw him he was slowly transforming, and it was almost like every other scene he had more makeup on or a different makeup effect. And it wasn't digital, it was applied to him. You could tell as he went along because he's transforming. And that was pretty wild that you think about the logistics, like, wow, it
kind of reminds me of Vincent D'Onofrio in Men in Black, how he transformed. As the show goes further, you can see him transforming, looking more and more disgusting.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because before I even watched the movie, I was thinking about it because I hadn't watched it in decades, but it was on HBO or whatever all the time when I was a kid. But yeah, when I first saw Men in Black, I thought, oh, this is just ripping off the scientist from Howard the Duck.
And yes, folks, this is a Lucasfilm limited film, so you can't deny it that it is Lucasfilm, because it does get the Wilhelm scream. We do have a Wilhelm scream in here, so let's not forget of the Wilhelm running gag that has been everywhere. Now, what'd you think of the music, Ian? Is it completely just rooted in the 80s for sure?
Yeah, but I mean that's fine. There's nothing really egregious. But I'm also a big sucker for the Howard the Duck theme song.
Yeah,
it's fun.
It's catchy, actually.
Yeah, it's catchy, just like whatever Howard was trying to prevent with that duck condom.
What was it about the 80s? What was it that was a joke of a guy having a condom in his wallet? It was like, why is that funny? That's good. He's being responsible. We're
Well, because it's a little duck condom.
Well, that's true. It was a little. It was a little one. I think it put on her probably on her pinky. It probably would have fit. So
again, I watched this with my wife, and she had two like really big keen observations. One about the makeup on Jeffrey Jones's character. She said by the end of the film, she said he looks like the bad guy from Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah,
he looks like Dr. Robotnik. But the other thing is the condom in the wrapper, or the condom in the wallet. Why is it unwrapped?
Not unwrapped. Yeah, I thought about that as well, and I'm like, are they going there? And they don't. She just plays it off kind of cute, and I'm like, it's not in the wrapper. Bev, it's not in the wrapper.
I just hope he wasn't trying to reuse it. Or something. Yeah.
No, that's disgusting.
Yes.
Let's get dangerous. No, that's a different duck. Sorry. But that's a Disney property too. So there you go. Yes, Howard the Duck is a Disney property as well. You folks just can't deny it. You can't. It exists. What's funny is my buddy got for me this release from Entrada, who, if you're not familiar with Entrada, they do these extended releases of soundtracks to where they provide like every musical cue they can. They try to replicate it. If they can't get the original studio tapes, they also re-perform the tracks as accurate as possible, and they do a fantastic job. I have a lot of them where Conan extended score, which has all the sound cues, which not all of them are great. You realize why they picked the ones they did for the soundtrack. But this one, what's interesting is it's 3 CDs. Okay, it includes the original soundtrack that was released with the vocals, actually 2 different versions of the Howard the Duck song. There's an extended version and the theatrical version of the Howard the Duck song. But the other 2 CDs are the instrumentals. Now, me being a score junkie, I would appreciate this, but you learn real quick there's not a lot of score in Howard the Duck. So what they filled these CDs with are a lot of studio tracks that were never released. So it's the same track, just slightly different. And they've got like 4 of them on there. So it gets so repetitious.
Wow. Did you listen to all 3 discs like all the way through?
Oh yeah. Well, of course I did.
I just, when I buy a book that has an index, I don't necessarily read the index, Mark.
Are you the guy that leaves just the dough end of a burrito on your plate and don't eat the full burrito? You know, the little end where they fold it in on the end?
No, I eat the entire thing.
Okay, well there you go. I listened to the entire thing there, all 3 CDs, because it's there and you should hear it at least once.
Mark, eating the end of a burrito takes approximately 20 seconds. Listening to 3 CDs does not.
Well, these were in my car, so they were good for driving. John Barry, a very well-known composer, did the music and the score, and the original songs were produced by Mr. Thomas Dolby. Yes. Yeah. Nice. So they're good quality as well. But I wanted to do this film, and I appreciate you both for wanting to talk about Howard the Duck, because I've been wanting to talk about it for a long time, because it is not a good film. I think we can all agree it's not a good film, but it is not as bad as I think many people make it out to be, including Rotten Tomatoes. No offense, Ian. I know you're part of that troop where they have it for 13%. That's why they will never make me Rotten Tomato critic, because if I go in there, I'm going to go to all the 0 films and start high rating them so they get above 0. But 13% on Rotten Tomatoes. But go ahead.
I was thinking about this because I was talking about the movie AI the other day, and that episode's coming out on my podcast later this week. The person I was talking about it to, Mr. Armand White, film critic extraordinaire and a good friend of mine, he was talking about how when that movie came out 20 years ago, it was not critically well received. A lot of people thought it was a lesser Spielberg effort. And so after we were done talking, I went and I looked it up on Rotten Tomatoes, and it was at like 74%. I'm like, that's still fresh, or maybe it was 66 or something, but it was still technically fresh. And I was like, that doesn't quite add up. I remember it being not that well received too, even though I wasn't a full blood, film critic back then. So I started looking at the reviews, and I promise there's a reason I'm mentioning this. That 13% of Howard the Duck, go back and look at the reviews and see how many of them were written in the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Because I wish there was like a time capsule feature where you could sort by like year of release to get a sense of what the actual critical consensus was. Because I have a feeling that AI, if I were to look at just the reviews from 2001, they probably would have been lower than what they are now.
Yeah.
And for Howard the Duck, they might have even been, I don't think it'd be higher than 13% by much. It'd probably still be pretty lousy, but I have a feeling it's the pylon. It's like, oh, Howard the Duck turns 20 this year. I'm going to write about it so I can trash it. That kind of a deal. So yeah, tomato meter is imperfect.
Well, let's just say that the tomato meter and Amazon can get into a ring and fight, because on Amazon, it's 4.6 out of 5.
That's the voice of the people, man.
With 1,300 some odd reviews.
I want to ask you both something, because Mark, you just said this is not a good movie. I kind of agree with you, but I also don't know why I think that, because when I watched it last night, there's parts of it that are kind of cringy and of their time, but there's a lot more of it that I think was kind of ahead of its time. And I think if you trimmed out the cheese, you could basically sort of retool this script just lightly and release it as a modern day Marvel film. And I think people would just eat it up.
Yeah. What do you think, Lamont?
Oh yeah, I agree. If you were to tweak this script and obviously do better with the effects, because I think you can make the CGI full CGI Howard the Duck look believable and incorporate him, and you get decent actors and type the script. Yeah, this is definitely a lot of people have been wanting.
Yeah, and I'll agree. As much as cheese, and I say it's not a great film because it's just lacking a little bit of that element. I think, in all honesty, I know that was the intention, but the parts that are supposed to be intentionally humorous are the things that fall the most flat in this film. I think the enjoyment of it is that borderline, the humor stuff that's a little more subtle and not insert joke here, parts, which you could tell. The Tim Robbins character, I mean, he's supposed to be a joke, and most of his parts are kind of awkward to watch, because you're like, he's specifically put in there just to be funny, but the stuff he doesn't land. But you're right. I honestly think you look at Guardians and the way that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2, you look at the tone, how the characters interact, how the humor is written in those two films, you could easily write a Howard the Duck or retool the script to be in that universe with that same type of spirit that the Guardians have. Because I loved it, and I didn't know anything about Guardians of the Galaxy going in, but it ended up being one of my favorite MCU films. It just did. I love, that's my jam. But thinking about Howard the Duck character, now that you have presented these other outlandish characters thanks to those two films, I think your audience could buy into Howard. I think you could do justice for Howard. And I think you could probably take the similar story that we had here in this original and just trim out some of the forced humor and get that James Gunn type of angle, of humor in there. And I think it works, because the stuff for me that I really enjoy is the stuff where they're not insert joke here. I actually like kind of the serious moments that Howard and Bev have when they're talking about, her career or his stuff, him missing his plan. There's some kind of quiet, serious moments. And I know it sounds weird, but these actually are handled fairly well. And I actually like these scenes, where he's testing out his song, before she comes out in the infamous scene that only everybody seems to want to talk about ever. When he's talking about his song and how he never finished, and I'm like, I like those bits. I like those moments. And then they, insert joke here, and they're just like, oh, come on. Really, you know.
Well, I mean, that's yeah. You give James Gunn the mandate to just do a pass on this screenplay. Don't come up with a new Howard the Duck movie. Don't try and change it. Just do a pass on this script. And I think you could turn it into something special. One of the things I love about this take on the character is he is just an average guy on this duck planet. It's not like he was the king of the duck world or the duck superhero. He was just a guy who, you know, never quite followed his dream, so he ended up in advertising copy and always kind of wanted to be a musician. And then at the end, his big victory is he doesn't come to Earth and become a superhero or conquer the planet or, you know, whatever. He does sort of save the day, but then he just goes back to being the manager of this punk band in Cleveland, Ohio. There's a lot there. And I think one of the things that is kind of that they could have kind of cleaned up, and maybe if they do a Howard, sequel or something like that, or a new version, they might clean up a bit, is there was what I think was supposed to be kind of like a heartbreaking moment where he decides to cut short his ability to get home in order to keep these monsters from invading. If there was more for him waiting back home, like if he had a girlfriend or something, because he was just kind of a peon. He's got more of a chance of like making something of himself on Earth, and he's got friends and all that stuff here, that it didn't seem like that big a sacrifice.
Yeah, it didn't seem like a sacrifice much for him. Like he wasn't giving up that much. Lamont, how'd you feel with this? Did it feel like he's actually getting the better end of the deal with this?
Oh yeah, I mean he does get the better end of the deal in this particular end of the film, because he had the opportunity to go back home, and he decided that no, I'm going to stop this from happening, even if it does prevent me from heading back to my own world. But hey, look, I wasn't nothing in my own world. I can be something. Hey, look, people still think that I'm some guy in a duck suit. I'm not a real guy. So I'll just play off of that.
It's the entertainment business, so sure, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if they want to do something and have that kind of, sorry, Mark, but that Marvel touch of having like an emotional draw along with the adventure and the comedy, they could have spent more time in this future version of Howard the Duck. They spend more time with him on this planet. Like you see an afternoon in the life where he's got a girlfriend and he's engaged, or he pops the question or something. You get the sense that he has real ties to this planet, and then he goes home. He tragically gets sucked away from everything, and he desperately wants to get back. And then at the end, it's not that he decides that he's happy about giving up his life. It's a hard choice. He just can't let several billion people on Earth die, and so you're left at the end with, well, this other planet's still out there. In future movies, are they going to explore a way for him to try and find a way to get back, or is he just going to have this kind of heartbreak? How does that inform the character of an anthropomorphic duck that you really care about all of a sudden?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Marvel touch especially, that's why I mentioned, James Gunn, that formula. I think they could do it. I mean, I honestly think Lucas had his fingers in the pot more than they may allude to.
That was never proven.
Right. No. As far as handling it, even though he was just producer, maybe handling the direction or some of the angles that it took, because of the things that aren't Star Wars that Lucas has directed, and even a couple of the things that Lucas has directed as Star Wars, there's some weird energy with it. I've seen it. We see it here in Howard the Duck. We see it later in that animated musical he tried to do. The I forgot what, something magic or something, and actually Red Tails. Even though he produced Red Tails, there's an interesting vibe with it. And when you see George Lucas produced, you're like, there's some similarities that making me wonder how much of these films did he put his input in on, because that style and that awkwardness, which we do see actually in Star Wars films too, some of the prequels, it's like, okay, he's producer, but is he also sitting next to the director going, nah, do this? No.
It might be. I mean, Red Tails, I actually really enjoyed that movie, and it's hard to believe that it's almost 10 years old now. Jesus.
Wow.
What's really weird is that the director of this movie, Willard Huyck, which sounds like people vomiting after they leave the theater for Howard the Duck. He actually had a pretty good screenwriting career, at least a couple of big hitters in addition to Howard the Duck, but he had writing credit on American Graffiti and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And this would kill this film killed his direction dreams. He directed the film before this, Best Defense, which did horrible at the box office, and then he directed Howard the Duck, and he no longer was directing films and barely writing any more films, unfortunately, because Temple of Doom is one of the I love that movie, the way that's written.
Oh, yeah, who doesn't love Temple of Doom?
Well, you're being a little harsh on the guy, because I mean his last writing credit was the classic TV movie from 2008, Secrets of a Hollywood Nurse.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Wow, that was not a dry eye in the house.
Or a dry tissue.
Or a dry tissue.
Sorry, that was a TV movie, not something else.
Yeah, wrong TV type movie there.
Come on, that movie starred Twink Kaplan, George Allen, and Stacey Dash from Clueless.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand why more people weren't talking about that one.
Because it was the Secrets of a Hollywood Nurse. The secret never got out.
No one wanted to talk about The Secret. Yeah.
Oh, so, wait. I'm sorry.
What?
I'm obsessed with this movie all of a sudden. Willard Huyck had a cameo. He played in that movie Electronic Larynx Man.
Okay.
Sounds like a bad superhero, but it was probably just a patient with one of those voice boxes.
I think that was probably a patient with one of the voice boxes. It's funny with this film how a lot of people. I had this conversation with my son. Yes, we were talking about it before the show about Academy Award winning films that have won a lot of Academy Awards. Yet you get a film like Howard the Duck, which many, many years later is still being discussed, not just by us, but by groups. It's getting midnight showings. They had a showing a number of years ago, I guess, a 70 millimeter print of it at Chinese Theater or whatever. And wow. Leah Thompson showed up and she said there were more people there than at the original premiere. They had like 400 people, I think, according to the trivia. And she was just blown away that it, and so not all films, so what classifies it as actually a really bad film? Where does it, is it the technical aspect that you judge a film by, or by how it's received, or if it's talked about 30 years after it's come out, or 28 years after it's come out? It makes you wonder that classification. We've had that discussion before. I mean, Lamont, what would you say? The fact is, it seems like Howard the Duck has a bigger following now than it did when it came out.
I think because I don't know what a lot of people expected when Howard the Duck first came out. Because as I did before, a lot of people didn't know that this was based on a comic book character.
Right.
Because everyone, it wasn't Spider-Man, it wasn't the Fantastic Four, it wasn't Captain America, it was a duck. And everyone thought that this was supposed to be some type of a satire movie. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of critics didn't like it, and it bombed. I think it was more that the critics didn't like it, and it bombed at the box office.
Right.
But as time goes on, and more people got to see it, with VHS and the Blu-rays and the digital, and it's like, well, it's not a great movie, but it's not really a bad movie. It's not a terrible movie, and I think that's the reason why people have come to appreciate it more and more now, as it did when it first came out. You do have those movies that tend to grow on you.
Like a fungus. No, though I don't know if you'll ever convince me, Ian, about Freddy Got Fingered, but
that movie's anniversary is coming up, and we're going to have talk about it.
Or The Apparition, or The Bye-Bye Man.
Or The Bye-Bye Man. What do you say, Ian, with this idea? Because you say Howard the Duck, people go, "Oh my God, that movie's awful." I'm like, yeah, but could you name Academy Award winning films from 86 to 87? Well, no, but if I mention Howard the Duck, you know exactly what it is. But
Platoon and the Untouchables. Anyway, sorry. No, I don't even know if they actually won those years, but I'm pretty sure
they were. They were.
But okay, and it kind of gets back to what we were talking about with Rotten Tomatoes. Is all right. Howard the Duck, Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man could have been Howard the Duck. It was a studio taking a chance on a comic book property that, if you were to poll the vast majority of moviegoers at the time they were released, they would have no idea who the hell they were. Comic book fans, of course, they're going to know Iron Man and Tony Stark and, Demon in a Bottle and all that stuff. But, Joe and Jane America, they're like, Iron Man, is that like the Iron Giant? I missed that movie, But Howard the Duck, the same thing. If Iron Man had come and gone and been a big, flop, not that the movies are of similar quality, we'd probably be having the same kind of a conversation, 10 plus years on, people discovering it and being like, this wasn't that bad. It just was misunderstood. The tagline for the Howard the Duck comics is that he's trapped in a world he never made, which I love that they integrated that line into some really sharp dialogue with, Leah Thompson's character.
Yeah.
But yeah, Howard the Duck, I think it was ahead of its time because comic book movies weren't a thing back then. If this had come out today, it would not have been as poorly received because it would also be a little different. You'd have that 80s cheese taken off of it and possibly replaced with something, really cool. And then, of course, later on, the movie develops a reputation. It flopped. Nobody liked it. It's terrible. So you get a younger generation of film goers and, even aspiring film critics who pick up Howard the Duck and they're like, oh, this is that movie that everyone said was terrible. I'm going to watch it. This is going to be great. I'm going to laugh at it. And they almost are afraid to be open to the possibility that they could be watching something that's not objectively terrible. And then the reputation grows, and then it's just kind of unfairly maligned for the rest of history.
The execution was poor, but the spirit was there because we didn't have many, as we've mentioned before, even with Superman 4. We didn't have many comic book films in general. Studios tended to go away from it because they weren't sure how to do it, and they didn't want to take a risk. I think what also kind of hurt this film was because Lucas was coming off of the Star Wars films. I mean, I know, Jedi, had been a few years, but still people knew Lucas for Star Wars films. Now he's doing the sci-fi film. Oh, they go in expecting maybe something a little quirky, but they're thinking maybe, another sci-fi like Star Wars type film, because as you said, very few people know Howard the Duck at all, knew the property at all. So they go in and they're like, this ain't Star Wars. And, so that expectation already plummets. And then you get kind of the awkward execution of these ideas and how the script plays out. And so in the end, you can kind of see where at the time it bombed. But I mean, now again, it's not phenomenal, but I find this film entertaining. I actually do, even with the snark and the cuts that we put on it. At the end of the day, I didn't feel like I wasted my time. I recognize it has some pacing issues for sure, but at the end, it was entertaining, and that song is damn catchy. It gets the freaking earworm of Howard the Duck. It's still there from listening to it earlier today. Yeah, I would love to see a modern Howard the Duck film. We probably won't get it, and that's my favorite. I'll end it tonight with my favorite story. And I know I've told this before, and I apologize for my repetition, but I'm broken sometimes. We're watching Guardians of the Galaxy. You get to the end credits. Everybody knows it's a Marvel film. End credits. Sit the end credits. Cut to Howard sitting there on the wreckage, sipping his coffee. Literally half the audience chuckled and went, "Oh my God!" And then the other half, which was anyone below the age of 30, were like, "Who's that?" I literally heard a couple kids go, "Who's that?" as mommy and daddy are laughing, and they're like, "We'll tell you in the car." And I it just made it even endeared Guardians of the Galaxy to me even more, because the fact that James Gunn put that reference at the end, knowing that was what the reaction going to be. Unless someone followed the comics, you're going to get half the people go, I know what that is. And the rest going, why is that funny? And we tell you later, I've got the Blu-ray at home. So, yeah, we'll wrap it up tonight here for Howard the Duck. I want to thank everybody for listening in. I want to thank my 2 crew members for joining us and taking this journey. We send out thoughts to, we got the BFD. We're wrapping up for the night, and the BFD's coming in.
Oh, wow.
As we are leaving.
Oh, wow.
Glenn is popping in.
Glenn probably gets in at the last minute.
And Glenn gets in at the last minute. I was going to say our hearts.
Did I miss Duck Boobs? Did I miss
You
that?
missed Duck Boobs.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
you
I'm still here. No.
we were just going to wrap it up for the night, and then the BFD shows up. So
Because the BFD got home from work, fell asleep, and then forgot all about this.
oh no, that's okay. So I know it's getting late for Monty, but since we have you here, we can carry on the last question kind of topic we covered. Do you consider Howard Duck actually a bad film? Yes or no, and why?
A bad film? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still a fun film, I think. I consider it a bad film because of the source material. I think they're just, I don't know. There's a lot of problems I have with it.
Mm-hmm.
Duck Boobs being one of them. It's just kind of there's just scenes that are there for no real reason.
You mean like Leah Thompson's costuming at some
Yes.
point? Yeah.
I mean, there's just things that are they're just like what was the I wish I could be in the room for when those decisions were made. And they said, yeah, this is what we want to do. And then I would have been like, why?
They would say Leah Thompson in a purple nightie. What do you mean, why?
Yeah, that
Would be the
would have
answer
been
you
a
would have gotten in
reply.
1986, and then you're fired.
I suppose, but I mean, like I said, I don't think it's a good movie, but I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. What parts do you? What is it that you enjoy about it?
I mean, I do enjoy some. I enjoy the character of Howard the Duck to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I could do without the song.
Oh no!
We were just talking
Yes,
about how
yes.
such an earworm that song is. I'm going to play
Yes.
that shit right now.
But you have to remember, not all earworms are good.
Yeah, ask Chekhov.
Oh,
So
come on! No,
exactly.
But the music, it's so 80s. I love the music. I like the music to this soundtrack, actually. So, but we know where my tastes lie. But at least Leah Thompson sang her own music. But so you do find entertainment in Howard the Duck, even though you acknowledge it's bad. Because we were wondering about what actually makes it a truly bad film. You know,
For me, it's some of the missed opportunities of what they could have done with the character.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could have treated it a little more seriously, but still had it, be campy.
That's exactly what we were saying. Is give it kind of the jump. Go ahead, Lamont.
Yeah, I think that was one of the huge problems because who's going to take a film like Howard the Duck seriously? That's the point. See, that's why. Like, I'm pretty sure you read the comics, right, Glenn?
Did you read the comic, Glenn?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while.
Because the comics, they even though some of it's ridiculous, but it's still they do take what he's doing seriously. And I think that was a huge problem the movie missed was that they didn't think no one's going to take a talking duck seriously because people want to compare it to Daffy Duck and Donald Duck. And so that's the reason why the film didn't take it seriously, And I think that was a missed opportunity. It's like, come on, you can take some aspect, you can make some of this aspect campy and make some jokes about it, but still at least take some of his situation seriously. But they missed out. Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's what we were talking about. It was ahead of its time. I don't know that you could have made a serious Howard the Duck movie in 1986, because we were still 3 years away from Tim Burton's Batman, which was the first comic book movie to really take the source material seriously. I mean, I know folks look at Richard Donner's Superman, but in those first couple of films, for as great as they are, there's still a lot of weird comedy, a lot of this is supposed to be a comic book, so we've got to make it somewhat wacky to balance out the drama. I think the modern Marvel films and even the modern DC films taught us that you can take something that is on its face ridiculous and get people to take it seriously and get emotionally invested in it. And that's why I think that Howard the Duck was just 30 years too early. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would not be against a reboot.
No, that's one reboot. No. I'll definitely take it. You could do it, but also, Glenn, you missed it at the beginning, and I'll close it with the same thing. This is the first MCU film. Thank you. There you go. They talk about multiverse. They've got Howard the Duck. He was at the end of Guardians. He fought with Thanos. You could fit this in the multiverse and therefore make this the first MCU film. So look at Glenn. Glenn's like, Mark, you just shut up, Mark.
No, you actually could. I mean, there is pretty much no difference in his appearance between this movie and the end of Guardians.
Right. He's a little thinner, but for the most part,
I mean, for the most part, there's no way if you saw Howard the Duck and you saw Guardians of the Galaxy, there's no way you could not go, that's Howard the Duck.
Right.
Because he's a duck, but
he's a duck. But, you know, they didn't do the DC thing where they said they would have made him like super muscled and brooding.
And on that note, we're going to end this episode. So I'm glad you could sneak in here for at least a little bit, BFD. So glad you could be here, Glenn, and in share your knowledge as well.
Swim to me.
Why did you say that name?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not going to trigger me, guys. It's okay. It's all right. I get it. You guys, I don't like the film. I get it.
Oh, you don't like it, Mark?
I like Batman v Superman. I like the DC films. So as they named me on Ian's show, the DC shill, though I'm not a DC shill, but hey, I'll take it. I'll ride with it.
I don't dislike them. I just don't like them.
I like what Zack Snyder did with Man of Steel, because I tell people all about this. I said, we're talking about placing his character, the Superman character. This is not George Reeves. This is not Christopher Reeves. This is Superman in today's society, and he's going to act totally different than the whole Superman that we've seen before. So I like what Zack Snyder did by putting Superman in this time period, his modern, not the typical Boy Scout goody guy shoes that we've seen him in the past.
Yeah, as the Matrix proved, they tried 7 times by making Paradise for Humans, and they rejected. If you have a character nowadays, especially who's too goody, people are going to reject it. But that's a conversation for a full nother time. So we're going to wrap it up tonight. I'm glad Glenn could pop in. Thank you, Lamont. Thank you, Ian. And as always, license to shill is yours. So please, Lamont, you are first, sir. The floor is yours. Shill away, please.
Okay. As I stated the last time I was on this show, like I said, my review of Super Deep, the latest Russian horror film, is up right now on my channel. I may do a thoughts on F9. I haven't decided about that yet. And then, of course, hopefully before the end of this month, I will have my top 5 best horror films of 2021 so far this year.
Awesome. Yes, check out his channel. We've got a link on the Special Mark Productions page for friends of Special Mark. It is there. Definitely check out his stuff. Glenn, you got anything to plug tonight? You got your TikTok?
You can always find me. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok as Games in the Bunker. And there is a 37.364% chance that in the coming month there may be at least one episode revisit of the B-Movie Bunker.
Ooh. Oh, well, way to tease me, Glenn. You tease. You're such a tease. Now I gotta. Oh, I tell you, now I just got to keep a sharp eye peeled for that.
That's some pretty precise math you've got there. I like
That
like
is.
those numbers.
I spent all day working that out.
Should
I
see
mean,
the
in that amount of time, I could have probably recorded 9 videos from the bunker, but I wanted to get the math down first.
you want to make sure you had accurate numbers. So
Yeah.
Ian, by all means, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I'm also on YouTube, which you can find on YouTube if you look up Kicking the Seat. I do movie reviews, critic roundtables, interviews, all that kind of stuff. I've fallen way behind on my schedule, which means I'm producing even more content somehow. So I'm putting out pretty much something just about every day that cannot keep up. So please join me for the ride and watch my eventual fiery collapse.
The burnout. You are just in beast mode. And I've got a few things going on. So just a few. Not only do we have the AMA coming up July 9th, folks, which I hope to see everybody there so you can give me a hard time or whatever about being 15 years here on the YouTube. But by the time this comes out, our merch store will be live for people. Yes, for anyone who cares, there's Spoiler Room, Final Cut, and Special Mark Productions merchandise. The store link will be on our page. For some reason, I started a TikTok and brought back the Movie Man's Movie Minute, and you can get Movie Man's Movie Minute reviews on TikTok. And there may be some things in the work that involve a place where you could play a bunch of music that is from my collection, as well as podcasts and such on a regular schedule, which is in the works, and it'll probably happen soon. Look for all of that to be announced between now and the AMA or on the AMA. Not only that, but new episodes of The Lonely Trooper, It's Finally Mine, and The Final Cut. So
You're going to be on the American Music Awards? How did I not know that?
yeah, I will, but we'll be in the back behind the curtain getting coffee. So there you go, folks. Thank you for tuning in, all that tuned in, and we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Hey,
Good night. Whoa, he looks like good night. Boom, gone.
Wait, yeah, did we lose Mark? We're supposed to do a post show. Wait, oh no, we're still live.
yeah, it's so nice.
When I hit the wrong button, I had leave